Okay, Thursday, October 2022, and it's 9 a.m.
Chair Young, Vice Chair Cooney,
Present.
Commissioner Kammeier, Commissioner Keller,
Here.
Commissioner Davis,
Here.
Council Liaison Sneddon.
Okay, are there any changes to today's agenda?
There are no changes to the agenda.
Great. Is there any public comment to start the meeting off?
There's no public comment at this time.
Can we please record that Commissioner Kammeier has now arrived?
Yes, we can.
Perfect. Okay, so there's no public comment, so let's continue to the consent items. The minutes from August 18th, 2022. Is there any objections to them?
I move to approve. I would second that. I do have a comment on item 5D, and it's just, it's not on substance. Just in the report itself, did not have the section for the Water Commission action, which tends to be standard, and we just missed it in that one.
Vice Chair, Commissioner Davis, I did not include that because I didn't think it was quite fair that that is getting published today for next week. It was one of those items that, because we skipped September, it really wasn't going to have a fair opportunity for you to weigh
My
in.
suggestion would be that if that's the case, that it said that Water Commission considered the matter at that meeting. And
Yeah.
then you don't even have to talk about the vote, but the fact that it did come through us.
Okay, thank
That
you.
works. Thank you.
Okay, any other comments? So do we have a motion to approve?
No, he motioned in a second.
Okay.
Commissioner Davis,
Yes.
Commissioner Keller, Commissioner Kammeier, and Vice Chair Cooney.
Yes. Okay, we'll move on to consent item B, the contract for construction management services for financial year 21B water main replacement project.
I thought we were approving the entire consent
Oh, I'm
calendar.
so sorry.
Was that correct?
No,
I'm just
you know
making
what?
sure.
I was wrong.
Okay.
Sorry,
Okay.
please.
Um,
It's being a little too specific.
Yeah.
Okay, so we can move on to administration items?
Yep.
Okay, fantastic. And we're starting with 6A, the recycled water market assessment, presentation of study and findings.
Vice Chair Cooney, Commissioners, this is obviously a significant effort the city's undertaken here to take a look and see if there were any other locations within the city where recycled water made sense. As you may recall, this came out of our enhanced urban water management plan and was one of the recommended actions. And so with that, I'm going to turn the presentation over to Dakota Corey, who's going to walk us through the presentation.
Good morning, Vice Chair Cooney and Water Commissioners. As Mr. Hagmark mentioned, my name is Dakota Corey. I'm the city's water supply analyst. And I believe the last time we were at Water Commission for this item was in January of this year. And at that time, we had just brought our consultant on board and we're kicking off the project. And so now I'm happy to be back and present the results. This is just a quick overview of my presentation. First, we'll review the goals of the project. And then we go through the different steps that were accomplished as part of the evaluation. So the first was an evaluation of possible recycled water expansion opportunities. We then compared recycled water expansion with potable reuse, and this was a cost effectiveness comparison. And finally, we have a summary of recommendations and conclusions. So as Mr. Hagmark mentioned, this is a project that came directly from our enhanced urban water management plan efforts, with the idea that the city wishes to maximize the use of its current recycled water system to the extent that it's cost effective. So we recognize that there is not a huge volume, but a small volume of water that we can produce in the recycled water system that isn't currently serving customers, and we wanted to see if we could cost effectively serve some additional customers from that system. With that goal in mind, we wanted to identify any possible non-potable recycled water system expansion options to serve existing potable customers. We were going to evaluate the cost effectiveness of that system expansion, and then we wanted to compare our non-potable recycled water expansion costs to potential future potable reuse and current desalination costs. So first, we'll look at the evaluation of possible recycled water system expansion opportunities. And this is just an overview of our current recycled water system. The thick purple line that you see is our distribution system for the recycled water. If you look in the center of the graphic, maybe like 2/3 to the right, you'll see a blue dot. And that blue dot is a reservoir, but it's very close to our Ellistor Water Resources Center. So that's where we currently, there we go, produce recycled water. And then we usually talk about this system as having two branches, an east branch and a west branch. And that will come up later in the presentation. And then also in this map, anything that's highlighted green is our current sites receiving recycled water, and that usage is primarily for landscape. So the first step in this process was to evaluate our current recycled water use so that we could determine how much extra recycled water is left over to serve potential non-potable potable customers. So currently our recycled water demand is 1,100 acre feet per year. We serve 119 sites and 12 fill stations, and that usage represents 63% of that 1,100 acre feet. Also, we use recycled water in some of our Elistero processes. That's about 27% of that 1,100 acre feet. And then finally, we initiated an agreement with La Cumbre Mutual Water Company to serve them recycled water for the La Cumbre Country Club. And at the time of this analysis, we hadn't served those customers yet, so we used their estimate of what their demands would be in this analysis. We're now serving them. We started in March. And you'll see here that this is 5 years worth of demand from 2017 to 2021. And the black hash line is average customer demand. Usually it peaks in August.
I believe we have a question.
Yeah, quick question. What's a fill station?
So the fill stations, I'm not the best person to answer this. Take it, Mr. Hagmark.
So we do have under our permit the ability to use recycled water for dust control and such. So we have strategically located them around the city, and so when contractors come in, depending on what they're doing, they can fill up their tanks with recycled water.
Thank you.
Joshua, can I do a quick question? Do other people do that also for private use?
We typically don't do that just because then we need to get a permit for kind of where they're using it,
Yeah.
how they're using it, to make sure there's no runoff. We did have, and the commission had a good lengthy conversation about whether we wanted to do that in 2016. But ultimately, we backed away from doing that just because it'd be very staff intensive. And again, we really don't think it's a great idea to be trucking water around. It is heavy at that, and the volume that you can actually carry in some of those trucks is pretty small.
No, I recall that. I just had an instance in town where somebody said they were getting recycled water from the city by filling a truck. And they're not contractors, and so I was just curious.
Yeah, that sounds interesting.
Yeah, no, but I do recall that previous discussion and what we had talked about at that time. Sure, thank you.
I was also wondering about the, I think I've seen before, like the city trucks that drive around and irrigate trees. Is that recycled water?
Yes, I believe so. Yeah, they have those gator bags around the trees. Yeah.
And so just one last thing to point out about this graph, recycled water use is inherently seasonal because it primarily serves landscape demands. So in the hot summer months when there's lots of evaporation, recycled water use peaks. And so you see that peak in August. And one of the tricks with recycled water and trying to use as much of it as possible is if we could find any demands in like the winter, spring, and fall, when those are lower, we would have the opportunity to serve more customers. But since it's primarily landscape use, really what we're looking at when we're trying to determine how much water we have to potentially share with our potable customers or sell to our potable customers, we're looking at that peak demand time in August. So the results of that evaluation, and I'm just going to apologize here, when we treat water, we talk about it in million gallons per day, but when we talk about water supply, we talk about it in acre feet, so there's lots of numbers and conversions here. The plant production capacity for recycled water is 4.3 million gallons per day, or 13.2 acre feet per day. Currently, our demand is 3.37 million gallons per day, and so that means we have a leftover capacity of 0.9 million gallons per day, or 2.9 acre feet per day, which is about 90 acre feet per month during that peak production period. So again, like I described earlier, we're really looking at peak production in August to determine what our limiting factors are for how much water we can produce. So the next step in this process was to figure out which of our potable customers might be good recipients for recycled water based on their potable water demand. And so we took potable billing water or data from 2017 through 2021, and we identified all customers that were using 10 acre feet of water per year or more. And then we also had a list of city-identified customers, and these are customers that have reached out to staff in the past inquiring about recycled water usage, or some recommendations from Water Commission at our January meeting, and we threw all of those onto a list. And then from there, we needed to say, of that potable use we identified in the potable billing data, how much of it could actually be potentially offset by recycled water. So we assigned a percentage estimate of the proportion of their use that could be non-potable recycled water supply. And so what that means is if it was primarily a landscape use, that would probably be 100% or maybe 90%. And if it was a customer like a hospital or an apartment building, that was actually probably 0% that could be converted to non-potable recycled water use. And so after we did that, we also looked at the location of the different sites that we were considering, and from there we eliminated 4 sites based on how far away they were from the existing recycled water system and how high they were, so the amount of pumping it would take to get water to them. In the end, we ended up with 22 potential new recycled water sites. So the next step was to prepare a cost-effectiveness evaluation, and the way to do that is to design what we're calling conceptual pipe segments. And so the idea here is to take the shortest amount of pipe, because pipe is expensive, and pick up the most amount of water use, because that's where we're going to get our sales and our demand. And so this map is hard to see from this distance, and I apologize for that, but I'll try to orient you a little bit. All of the orange dots represent the potential new customers, and the size of the dot represents their demand, so bigger dots is more demand. You can kind of see along the ocean our existing recycled water system that goes up to the golf course and then out on the East Branch. And then you can also see that there are different colored of these conceptual pipe segments, segments 1A through segment 5. And that's really what we're evaluating for the cost effectiveness evaluation. And I do have a list of which customers are served by each segment, so if you have a question about a particular customer, I should be able to answer that for you. And then here's a table with lots of numbers in it. So this is the results of that analysis. So you see in the left-hand column each of the segments, 1A through 5. And you see the demand from the customers that we could pick up with each of those segments in the next column. And then we did an estimation of capital costs, O&M costs, and then we looked at if we amortize those costs over a 30-year period and a 15-year period. And the reason that we had the 2 time periods is because we anticipate that direct potable reuse may become a viable supply for the city in the next 15 or so years. And so if we're spreading those costs over that shorter period of time, we want to make sure we consider that because it makes it a little bit less cost effective. And so you'll see here with each of those segments, segment 1A is the only one that comes out with kind of a viable cost per acre foot cost at the end at $1,700 per acre foot. And you'll see that some of the segments were up as high as $30,000 per acre foot, so clearly not cost effective. Question?
Quick question. So the capital cost is the installed cost, breaking up streets, putting down the pipe?
Yeah, so it's, we estimated the pipe cost, any pumping costs associated with that, construction with a contingency, and connection to the non-potable system.
Thank you.
Okay, so the results of that cost-effective analysis, I'm gonna skip first to the second bullet, which is that segment 1A was the only cost-effective option. It would serve 32 acre feet per year to a commercial laundry facility, and that most of the other options range from $4,000 per acre foot to $30,000 per acre foot. So they're significantly more expensive than other water supplies we have and therefore not cost-effective. And then the first bullet I wanted to touch upon, when we were doing this analysis, 2 customers were identified the Santa Barbara Zoo and the Santa Barbara City College, which are current recycled water customers, but they have the potential to use more recycled water than they do now. And so we wouldn't have to build any pipes or pumps to get the water to them. We're really there looking at if they were to do some sort of significant construction where they're kind of tearing up their site anyways, we could put in the purple pipe, and then that would be a really cost-effective opportunity to serve some additional recycled water.
Yeah, I just wanted to add, with this cost estimate, these would be the city's cost for expansion, and or some shared cost, potentially with the developer or property owner. But then they have on-site improvements, obviously, that they'd have to make that would be pretty substantial. So these costs reflect kind of the infrastructure in the public right-of-way, and pumping that would need to be done to get that water to the property. But at this point, we did not get into looking at what the on-site, for example, the laundry facility, what exactly would they need to do to be able to do this, and how would they, and some of those big improvements are protecting the potable system, so what kind of backflow or cross-contamination would they need to do to make sure that that wasn't an issue?
All right. So after we completed the cost effectiveness evaluation, we wanted to compare those costs of expansion of the recycled water system with potential future potable reuse. So this study, the Recycled Water Market Assessment, builds on the 2017 potable reuse feasibility study, which we completed when we were reactivating the desalination plant. And it uses alternative 1B from that study, which looks at advanced treatment, not exactly at El Estero, actually across the street in the Corp Yard. Yes, Annex Yard, thank you. I knew that wasn't quite right. And so advanced treatment would occur at the Annex Yard, and then we would repurpose, if you can remember that recycled water map, the west branch of the recycled water system to convey that advanced treated water up to the municipal golf course, where there it can connect with a transmission main that would take it up to Laurel Reservoir next to Cater Water Treatment Plant. We would have raw water augmentation, which is a specific term that's being developed in the new direct potable reuse regulations at Laurel Reservoir, and then treatment again at Cater Water Treatment Plant before it was distributed to city customers. And so this gives us lots of opportunities to intercept that water if something were to go wrong before we distribute it to the customers. This, again, replaces a portion, at least, of the non-potable recycled water system. And for this evaluation, we looked at two different production capacities for the advanced water treatment facility. One was a 3.7 million gallons per day production, and one was 6.3. The 6.3 million gallons per day includes source water both from the city and Montecito Sanitation District. Montecito Water District is doing a parallel project right now where they're evaluating the feasibility of both potable reuse and recycled water. And one of the options that they're exploring is partnering with Montecito Sanitation District, partnering with the city to do a direct potable reuse for kind of a larger region. So that was included in our study as well. And this just provides a cost comparison of direct potable reuse at those two different production capacities. So you'll see we've got DPR at 3.7 million gallons per day and at 6.2, and then we get a unit cost per acre foot. And so if you look at the third row down, that shows the direct potable reuse costs at the two different production capacities. You get some operational efficiencies the more water you produce, so it's actually a little bit less expensive per acre foot to produce at the 6.2 million gallons per day, coming in just over $2,000 per acre foot. And then in that fourth row has current ocean desal costs, and this would be at production capacity of the desal plant at 5,000 acre feet per year. We're at 2,450 estimated. Currently, we estimate that desal production is around $3,000 per acre foot. So the results of this analysis show that direct potable reuse could be a cost-effective new supply for the city. I do want to say that it was super preliminary. You know, we don't have like a baked design here or anything like that, and so we use the best information available at the time, but take those costs with a grain of salt. Okay, so another thing that we looked at was a hybrid system. So this would be maintaining the east branch of the current recycled water system to serve recycled water customers. There's 39 existing customers on that branch of the system, and they use about 335 acre feet per year, and continuing to use recycled water at the El Estero wastewater treatment plant for process water. And then the west branch of the system would be repurposed to transport the direct potable reuse to Laurel. And so a weighted average of this combined system comes out just under $2,000 per acre foot. So that looks like a cost-effective option for the city. And that would be during the existing life of the recycled water system. So we'd probably want to reevaluate if we were looking at major upgrades or repairs to the system. But if we wanted to use it for its useful life, that could be a cost-effective option. So, recommendations and conclusions. And this is sort of a summary of pretty much everything we've just discussed. But the city should explore expanding non-potable recycled water service to serve a commercial laundry facility, which was located in segment 1A. And as Mr. Hagmark explained earlier, this would be a new use in the city. It's not a new use in the state. There are commercial laundries that are using recycled water in their business, but new use for our customer and for the city. So we would want to work with maybe like an engineer or other knowledgeable staff to make sure that we had buy-in and that it would work well for both parties. All the other segments for recycled water expansion were not cost effective. We talked about working with the Santa Barbara Zoo and Santa Barbara Community College to explore options for expanding their recycled water service, especially if they have a new construction project coming online.
One of the questions we get is, of course, what happens if you get some grant funding? Because that would obviously lower the cost. The challenge is with those grants, they want to see that it is, outside of them contributing to it, they want to see that it's a cost-effective solution. So we don't think we would be competitive in getting grants to offset these costs just because the unit cost is so expensive.
Additional recommendations, we should consider pursuing direct potable reuse implementation at the larger production capacity of 6.2 million gallons per day. I'm sorry, I have a tickle. Okay. And that DPR provides significantly more supply than expanding the recycled water system. Just a minute, I'm sorry. Okay, I think I have a voice. Let's see. I'm okay. I've only got like 2 more bullets. Again, the hybrid system where we would continue to serve customers on the east branch of the recycled water system makes sense for the city while that facility is still in good working order. And then there was also a risk assessment performed as part of this analysis where it looked at the risks associated with both direct potable reuse and recycled water. And because direct potable reuse is a new use not only for the city but statewide, it's more sensitive to risks than recycled water, which we've been implementing since the 80s. So that is kind of a logical conclusion there. And then finally, the apparent economic feasibility of a new DPR supply or direct potable reuse supply makes it the next best reliable water supply alternative after ocean desalination once regulations are finalized with the state and we know exactly what we're up against. So I don't think that DPR would be replacing desalination for the city at this point, but it's another alternative supply for us in the future. And that concludes the presentation, if you have any questions.
Thank you. I had 2 questions. One is just a numbers question about the MGD versus acre feet per year. So for the DPR, you had the kind of 3.7 MGD and 6.2 MGD. What does that translate to in terms of like acre feet per year, like the proportion of our supply that would provide?
That's a good question. I'm sorry to include that. I'm not very good at these conversions in my head, but I know the 6.2 is right around 6,000 acre feet per year.
Okay. Oh, so that's a lot.
Yeah, I think the way to look at this, just again, it's about 1,000. So if it says 3.7 MGD, it's about 3,700 acre feet a year. Again, it's rough, but it'll get you in the ballpark.
Okay, thank you. That's good rule of thumb for future. And then my other question was looking at the recycled water market analysis. I noticed that there weren't very many, there's that one commercial application, but no industrial applications. And I was wondering about like processed water or other industrial applications and whether that was looked at.
Yeah, so we really just don't have big industrial customers in our service area. And so when we did that analysis, looking at who uses 10 acre feet per year or more, there weren't many uses that fell into that. Or if they were a use that then wouldn't really lend itself to converting to recycled water. One that we did include, though, in one of the segments, and I can look up which segment specifically, was cooling water or cooling tower water for the hospital. So that was one industrial use we included.
Yeah, the challenge was there is you have to take it to a much higher quality level, and with that you have waste discharge, and so it's definitely a jump. But if it was viable, I mean, that could be an option.
Thank you.
A couple of questions. The first one is, does the recycled water system already include all or most city parks?
Yeah, it includes most. I can go way back to
To the map.
that
So most
original
of them are
map.
included already.
Yeah, and we did look at two of the larger parks we looked at in this expansion opportunity were Alameda Park and the Alex Keck Park Memorial Gardens, but that segment wasn't cost effective. So that's a park that isn't currently served, but we did analyze. Yeah.
And the other question is, with respect to the recycled water versus DPR, the direct bottle reuse requires reverse osmosis and disinfection, but we already get pretty close with the recycled water. How much is that to take that recycled water and put it into DPR quality? Do we have the differential between those two?
I definitely don't know that answer. Do you know, Mr. Hegmark?
I don't know that we broke that out. Yeah, I'd have to look at that a little closer because I think part of the challenge is the seasonality of this. As I think I've commented before, our recycled water system right now is actually the same. The treatment plant is the same size as desal in as far as capacity. Yet we can only get, on the best case scenario, 1,400 acre feet out of it just because of the seasonality of it. So as we go to DPR, the thought process there is that we would be able to utilize that year round, which significantly helps the unit cost.
Right, well, that was what I was
That-
thinking, that
yeah.
if that recycled water facility could be pretty much converted to a DPR when the regulations are ready, then the cost may not be as much for the city.
Yeah, and I think one of the challenge, I think if we do a 3 MGD or the 3.7 MGD advanced treatment, there's a good potential, depending on where we are when we do this, to utilize the existing tertiary treatment. So what we're doing across the street is really building the RO, that final polishing there. However, if we're doing a 6, we're going to basically have to rebuild an entirely new tertiary level treatment. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I only have comments, not really questions. And I'll start at the 30,000-foot level. When I see these reports, my eyes tend to gloss over, but not this one. This was a really good report. I enjoyed reading it. It was super informative. I thought it basically answered the kind of questions you need to answer for a question like this. So my first overall arching comment was, I really thought this was a fine report, which I want to compliment staff and the folks that worked on it. Really good report. Water being the most important element to life, let alone the running of a city. I want the Public Works Director to know that Water Resources has dibs on the city yard for DPR in the future. Put that in the record. I also want to note that the DPR water would be considered too pure or wouldn't have to be treated in that regard. We had that same situation with desal when it first came out, and it's just always very interesting. I truly enjoyed how they dealt with the uncertainties and the scoring of the uncertainties. That sometimes is kind of like out there, but I think the type of matrix that they did and the scoring that they did, I found to be, again, very, very informative at this level of analysis. And then the last thing in terms of a thing, there was a chart on page 28, looks like that. It's basically the drought periods within the city. And it's just, again, maybe I'm just too hypersensitive. It says that basically in 2019 to 2020, we were not in any kind of drought situation at all. That's, again, maybe I've just been sitting in the drought so long, I felt like everything was cool, but that surprised me. I like the graph. but I didn't know that we had come out of even the lowest level of concern for drought.
And I can address that really quickly if I may. That's a good question, Commissioner Davis. And basically, that's data from the federal government's U.S. Drought Monitor. And so it's that graphic that we see every month
Right.
with the California and the different drought classifications. And so it's based upon really specific data like stream flow and soil moisture content and snowpack. And if you'll recall, I believe it was 2017 was an above average rainfall year, and then 2020 was an average year. And so I think those metrics were just enough to kind of pull us out based on the measurements that they take for that chart.
Well, again, like I say, really informative report. Even that graph is very informative to me. So again, thank you for the effort.
Any other questions or comments from the commission?
I just had one question about the timing of the DPR regs from the state. Could you give me a sense of what that looks like?
I've heard various things that they're making great progress, but I think the reality of really bringing it and seeing communities adopt it, particularly Santa Barbara, again, keeping in mind that we do not have the depth that San Diego or LA might have. I think we're looking to see those folks adopt it first and be successful at it. Their website right now, the San Diego, who's kind of basically the same project that we would want to do, they're looking at 2034 as kind of their timeline for doing that. So I'm kind
For
of
starting it or for finishing it?
for actually producing water. And so I've been kind of following that, and that coincides kind of with what I'm planning on my end. However, we are going to be lining up someone from DDW to come and speak specifically on how they're making progress. We'll have them come speak to the commission. I'm working on getting a schedule out of them about when they can come, so you can ask that question and we can hear what they have to say. Because I think there's the regulatory process, and then there's the implementation process, and whether or not we want to be the tip of the spear on something like that, or we want to see some of the bigger agencies who have the ability to take some of those risks, and the staff that can really manage that, do that first, and then we kind of learn from their mistakes.
Thank you.
One more question. So what's our next step really? So there's some, not many, low-hanging fruit. The laundry and City College, as well as the Sioux. Are we pursuing those actively? Is that the plan now to sort of see what opportunities there are, or what are the
Yeah, so we'll be reaching out to them. We wanted to check in with, obviously, with the commission first, and then we'll be reaching out to them to have additional conversations about this. And then the other one that continues to kind of evolve is this conversation that's going on with Montecito Water, Montecito Sanitary, and their study that's going on. Ms. Corey's been following kind of their public meetings on this. I encourage the commission, if they're interested as well, to kind of follow their dialogue. There's a lot of politics along with that, but I think at the end of the day, personally, I think there's a lot of benefits to both communities with regional facilities, and I think there's an opportunity for El Estero to serve that regional wastewater treatment need, and do it in a way that's reduces cost to both communities. And some of the bigger issues that we have to tackle is how do you deal with I&I, which has, when we get to the Water Resource Managers report, we just continue to see less than our wastewater flows continue to drop, but we still have that vulnerability that when we do get wet weather, we see those giant spikes. We need to figure out how to buffer that, so that if we did add their community on, which, as you kind of know, it's a pretty spread out community. They got lots of a collection system, which means lots of opportunities for stormwater to get in. How do you manage that additional I&I that would come in with those, with a connection to them? But I think there's a technical solution to that, and we'll continue to kind of explore that with them.
Okay, is there any public comment on this?
No, not at this time.
Okay. Okay, Okay, fantastic. So at this point, we're gonna proceed to administrative item 6B, the wastewater annual report.
All right. Vice Chair Cooney, we're kind of changing the game today. Ms. Blessy had 2 speakers lined up, and both have been unable to speak on this item, so she's going to be pinch hitting, and she's going to do a fantastic job.
Fantastic. You're not just doing it to mess with me, right? I respect it if you are. I just-
Yes. And we have a lot of content here. I really do appreciate this presentation. I'm really looking for feedback from the commission. We spend a lot of time putting this together because we want to make sure our community knows what's going on. This is, as you all know, very important, and it often just happens behind the scenes. And we're using this opportunity to kind of daylight some of the great things that are going on and some of the challenges that we have. And we're going to be doing the same thing with water, but often wastewater doesn't get the spotlight that it deserves. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Ms. Blessy.
Thank you, Mr. Hagmark. Good morning, Vice Chair Cooney and Water Commissioners. My name's Amanda Flessy. I'm the Wastewater System Manager. And we'll be presenting our annual report for fiscal year, or I will be presenting the annual report for fiscal year 2022. And just to give you context, the fiscal year is from July 1st of 21 to June 30th of 22. But before I start, I wanted to take the opportunity. We did have some members of our team change, and I wanted to take the opportunity to introduce Mr. Amador Escalante, aka Herman. He will be our new wastewater collection superintendent starting Saturday. So he's not here presenting this with me, but he currently is our wastewater treatment maintenance supervisor. So he's in charge of all of our lift stations, and I want to thank him for being here because right now we're doing some lift station bypass training and working, and so he's here with me. But I want to take this opportunity for you guys to meet him. He'll be presenting this next year, hopefully. So thank you. Wanted to start that. Today, I will be presenting wastewater system overview for the wastewater treatment, collections, and our capital improvement projects. Before we start, I wanted to take the opportunity to kind of highlight some of our star players over this fiscal year. First on the right-hand corner is Mr. Luke Pico. He's one of our senior collections operator. He got Employee of the Month on February of 2022. He just really helped out us in January. We were really struggling with staffing, had a huge COVID outbreak, and a lot of leadership change, and he helped come in there and with the 3 or 4 staff that showed up, assigned work, and still was very productive. And so I really appreciate all his team effort. On the bottom there is Ms. Shannon Emmenizer. She is our capital improvement project coordinator for our collections team. She is fairly new to the city, about 18 months, and has just been amazing to work with, has come in, we've had some superintendents and some leadership vacancies. That hasn't stopped her. She has really dove in with both feet and has helped me out quite a bit with all of these vacancies. So she got Employee of the Month of June 22. And finally, on the left-hand side is our Consumer Confidence team. They got Team of the Month of July 21 because that's mostly our lab staff and our admin staff. They pull together all of our water quality reporting, and what made this such a great effort was we did it in Spanish and we went more digital this year, and so that took a lot of time and a lot of effort, and we really appreciate all their hard work that they did. All right, wastewater treatments. Today's presentation will highlight information presented in our annual report that is submitted to the state, and that's on a calendar year basis. So it's a little conflicting with our fiscal year reporting. But this is part of our NPDS reporting requirements, and this also expands on our non-compliance related operations and performance metrics at the treatment plant. This diagram is based on our SCADA system home screen. SCADA is our supervisory control and data acquisition, basically our brains. This computer systems allows staff to monitor and control the processes at El Estero and our lift stations. I'm not going to describe every process, but I'll just give you a highlight there. The influent comes in the top left from our collection system. Effluent is discharged to the ocean on the top right. After going through our liquid process across the top of the screen, recycled water is treated and is discharged there on your bottom right and distributed to our customers. The bottom left shows our biosolids treatment process, including our cogeneration engine, and provides us with electricity. We maintain and operate 7 lift stations within the city of Santa Barbara. I know that's pretty small, but there on your left-hand corner is our Braemar lift station, and that pump allows all of the lower Las Positas and Hidden Valley area. That is our largest pump station, and I'll be addressing that one, or our largest lift station, and I'll be addressing that one in our capital improvement projects, because that's the one that's going to be rehabbed here, hopefully in the next coming year. All right, P3 project objectives. Our main objective is to stay within compliance of our NPDES and APCD permits. Right now we are doing our dome replacement and cleaning project currently in our El Estero, and we have so far completed digester 1, and we are still in compliance with our NPDES and APCD permit limits. So we met that goal. As far as I brought up our SCADA, our process control data system, that kind of got broken up. Our SCADA system, we do have someone on board to help us with our SCADA system. What we decided to do was encompass everything instead of parcel it out because of a lot of things that were going on. We wanted to get prepared for our electrical projects. So that RFP has gone out, and our system assessment upgrade is currently in process and should be completed at the end of this fiscal year.
Just want to note P3, it's a Paradise Performance Program, so it's basically our measurable objectives. We report out every year to council on this, but we also internally are kind of auditing ourselves and evaluating how we're doing against objectives that we set out the year to do. So that's what it stands for.
Really quickly to go over this, these are just our measurable objectives, making sure we are in 100% compliance with all of our permit requirements, and we are meeting a lot of our targets with our wrench time and preventative maintenance work. Other program measures are wastewater flows. On the left is our monthly average showing our effluent flow at the plant. The green represents the average daily flow, and the blue bar represents the peak flow through the plant. You can see where we discharge about 4 to 5 MGD on a daily basis, but in December of 21, we had a rainstorm that sent about 12 MGD through the plant. And it had an instantaneous peak there of 24 MGD, and we continue to monitor these things. On the right, you can see our average daily recycled water production. Sure.
Sorry, quick question.
Yep.
Since our sewer system is separate, stormwater versus,
Correct.
Why do we see such a big peak? Where does that water come into the system?
That's a great question. That's part of the I&I study that we are addressing in our CIP. I&I, infiltration and inflow.
just expand a little bit more on that. The sources tend to be illegal connections into the sewer system. We've done our best, but to kind of look at those, and there's a signature to the stormwater that does get in. If it's a quick spike, it's typically homeowners who, for convenience, have tied in their roof drains and or area drains into the sewer system. And we have done in the past a lot. We did what's called smoke bomb testing, where we put them in the sewer and you see the smoke come out of people's air vents, which is what they should, but if you see it coming out of their lawn or you see it coming out of their gutters, then it's a problem. We caught quite a few, and then some caught on and put in P-traps so that wouldn't happen. So unfortunately, it's something we've, and it has gotten less, and one of the things that Ms. Leslie was making reference to is the last one we did was in 2009, the last INI study, so we're updating that, which will take a look at that. The challenge with these INI studies is you need it to rain. You need it to rain in order to actually see if your system is making progress towards eliminating those. The other areas are when you have shallow groundwater and it actually is getting into cracks in the top of the pipe and infiltrating in that way. There's a different signature to that because it usually takes some time before it makes it in there, so it'll come later after it rained. It'll kind of start to go up after that, yeah.
So, I feel like I'm so naive at some of these meetings sometimes, but illegal tie-ins with your rain gutter, I mean, that's intentional, right? Like, there's no way you accidentally...
Yeah, and unfortunately for a lot of folks, their properties are in weird areas, and it would be really complicated to get their stormwater out. And so,
So it's to stop flooding in their yard, and it seems easy, but it's bad for the city?
yes, exactly.
Interesting.
It's bad for the
knew?
community.
No,
I
no,
mean,
no, for sure,
ultimately,
but-
because we have to treat it, and it potentially increases the likelihood of spills. So,
Out of all the things you'd never conceive of doing illegally, right?
yes.
Or I'm a goody two-shoes, or
Yeah.
whatever. So interesting, sorry.
Can I ask one other question? Looking at that spike at 24 million gallons a day, does the plant have a maximum capacity it can handle on a spike?
We do. It's 32 MGD.
32, okay. And again, sorry, with increased, let's just say with climate change, increased rainfall, and peaks going up, have we ever noticed any are we tracking basically the kind of peaks that we have here? Have we seen any increase in the peak flow in that regard? Maybe too soon.
Yeah, and it's just been such a dry spell. We really
That's
haven't seen that. I do want to say the way that our collection system works provides us a little buffer in the sense that there is some level of storage in the system.
Yeah.
So what the operators can do is they can kind of throttle some of the wastewater coming in, and we can store several million gallons of just in backing up the system. However, some of the communities have done what they're called equalization basins. So you actually build this basin in which you're taking even daily diurnal flows, and you're kind of buffering that, which is really nice for the treatment process, because what our biological activity likes is a nice constant feeding food. So trying to work through that there, I think that's potentially a climate change action that could do, is to put in that equalization basin. It offers several benefits. It's just looking at the cost, because maintaining that kind of and space is always a challenge, yes.
Space, we have no space at El Estero, so we would have to find space.
Yeah, good, thank you.
Okay, so the other graph is our recycled water. We are producing about 2 MGD on a daily basis, averaging about 1.5 MGD monthly during the summer. In the winter, we get down to 0.5 MGD. Most of the processed water is used within the treatment plant. I really wanted to include this to show how chemical costs are skyrocketing, and just skyrocketing over this year specifically, and also how to obtain those chemicals has also been problematic over this year as well. As you can tell, it's more than doubled, and Josh asked us to put in more years to show how much it has increased over the past years.
Yeah, that's a monthly cost. So yeah, we're going from roughly $50,000 a month to now 90. I keep hoping it's just a supply chain issue, but I'm not optimistic that it is going to go down.
And I also want to point out, that's just chemical costs. This is not our utilities, which we'll get to here. So, of course, our utility costs are going up, but we are trying really hard to hone in our digester gas usage. We did really well by one digester was down, and we were working on that. And so we did make a lot of production. And this year, during those power outages, requests to power down, we were able to utilize cogen 70% of our power needs during that time. So we've been working really closely on trying to get more gas production from our digesters.
Something you're going to talk about later is the fog, right?
I am.
Okay.
Yes, that's coming up.
When you say you're asked to power down, is that the same kind of thing that we were thinking of doing with the desal plant, where it's like a demand response with the gas company or the electric company?
Yeah, this was an interesting one for us because we could. They were so concerned about the power issue that they were allowing utilities to switch over to generator. And we can power El Estero with 100% generator. The issue is that if we switch over to generator, we have to turn cogen off. So doing all of that would only gained us just a small margin. And so what the staff did, I really appreciate this, not only do we make sure we kept cogen on, but they also looked to just what operations could they temporarily shut down. And I think it was almost equivalent to going on to 100% generator. So what they were able to do was pretty remarkable. And it's kind of, continues, that whole group is so environmentally conscious. It was really interesting to see them kind of dig in and really see what they could shed. So they did some heroic work.
That's pretty remarkable. So you could run the system on cogen for some period of time.
We could, eventually getting to that point, like how can we get down to there? And I think we're going to get into talking about potential fog and then, of course, the electrical upgrades that's going to help us be able to add solar on site and other renewables in the future. So
It's exciting.
So we will be talking about fog a little later. So I was going to ask, how much fog contributes to the whole production here?
Yes.
If we're
I
gonna
don't know
get
if
it
I
later.
have those numbers, but we
Okay.
will be talking about fog a little bit later
Okay.
in the presentation. I wanted to move on to our maintenance activities. I really want to highlight our maintenance program. 81%, the reason is because without our maintenance programs, we would not be able to catch a lot of our risky items. We are running a lot of our items to, I wouldn't say failure, because we have the maintenance personnel constantly checking in. But as you have seen in the past, when we do the check-in, we do see that there is high risk, especially when it comes to our electrical panels and our transformers, and they're all caught by our maintenance team. And so they are just really tremendous, and they do everything from wet well cleaning at the lift stations, washer compactor bearing replacement, grit chamber air diffuser replacement, flight and chain sprocket replacements in the clarifiers. They do all of the replacement of the piping and tertiary. They are just an amazing team, a small Army team that really has picked up their wrench time and their maintenance work orders, and that asset management program has really developed and turned into a tremendous program.
I just want to point out, Mr. Escalante here plays a significant role in that. It's his team that is making sure that our lift stations and our wastewater treatment equipment are well maintained and staying ahead of those proactive events so that we don't have anything catastrophic happen. So it just happens that he's here today, and it's a pleasure to recognize him for his work in setting that program up.
exactly why we're stealing them for collection. All right, moving on to our graphic, our Corona pandemic impacts graphic. We are no longer maintaining this. This is maintained by Santa Barbara College Hospital. Down below is the website that everyone can sit there and look that up. It is updated every Friday. So we're still maintaining that. And we'll be back in I believe, February to provide a more in-depth presentation with Cottage Hospital on this.
I will note, I went on there this morning and it hasn't been updated since September 20th. Exactly, and part of that, I believe, is a Hurricane Ian, because that's where we send our samples right now. So I'm not sure what, because there is a time on those samples, and then they're no longer valid anymore. So I think that data is just going to be missing, but I can find out more information on that, but I believe that's why it hasn't been updated.
I just wanted to point out, I think the city was really ahead doing this, and now we see, finally public health officials are recognizing it worldwide that this is a really important tool for tracking not only COVID-19, but hepatitis, polio, and other things that are, so it's quite interesting that this is becoming a tool for addressing major public health issues. So,
It
and that's
really
right,
is,
yeah.
and we've been asked to track a lot of things, and we're more than happy to do that. But however, this is still at our cost, and they're very expensive tests. This is about $15,000 a year to monitor this. That's coming out of our budget with no assistance. And so when you have those other tests that they want to monitor, those are even more expensive tests, and the staffing time that goes along with it. And so where is the balance? We're more than happy to help out as long as people provide the funding for it, and they just haven't come up with that yet.
So we're excited to have them come and speak to the commission. Hopefully, I think it was like February or something, we're lining that up. So you can actually speak to the folks from Cottage Health and County and share your thoughts on that.
So moving on, the pandemic has still impacted us as far as FY 2022. We have not resumed any of our public tours. It also has impacted our staffing. We still have outbreaks here and there, and so making sure we have enough staff on each shift. Also, it has limited our chemical supply, and when we receive those chemical supplies, it also is a big impact to, which I'll go into more, into our capital improvement projects, construction. Big delays on those materials, and cost increases are more than doubled with construction cost, it seems. And so, and of course, we are still feeling the impact of those flushable wipes that are not flushables. They tend to get stuck in our lift stations and on routes in the collection system. So every time we find those, we go out and we try to do door hangers and try to really educate them that those, although it says flushable, they are not flushable. Water quality.
Sounds like an opportunity for a lawsuit there.
There has been in the community of wastewater. So I know that the wastewater has brought this to a bill, and in 22 the manufacturers were supposed to put some kind of signal on there, not flushable, very, very tiny, non-toilet, but everyone is now used to these flushable wipes, and so they don't see that kind of subscription on their wipe packaging. Water quality. Okay, this shows our CBOD removal across the plant. Our CBOD represents the organic strength of the wastewater when it is discharged. The bars represent the concentration of the CBOD at the different processes, and the lines show our removal rates. On the right, you can see our effluent turbidity, which is the clarity or the murkiness of the water. And it is consistently low now with our new treatment process. Our NPDES compliance. We have had some permit violations. Fecal chloroform and Pterococcus have been our only permit exceedance. The other violations are related to deficient monitoring. Enterococcus is a new permit requirement that was added to our revised permit of 2020. We had intermittent violations throughout the year, and that's mostly because of the testing. Although they put this in our permits, the testing for it was not really clear. And so we had to figure out how to provide this testing. So what had happened is our laboratory staff identified there's interference with this testing because it's such a minute test. There on the left picture, if it highlights, that means we have Enterococcus. On the right, it shows nothing is highlighted, so we don't. Well, we had to work with, we were just getting what we felt was false positive results because of the testing. So we worked with a lot of labs, and we came up with, there's a certain dilution rate we weren't doing. And so when we worked with these labs, we found the dilution rates, and then we worked with the State Water Control Board to make sure that was in conjunction. And they approved that. So what we've been doing the past couple of months is sending in our technical justification so the Water Resources Control Board can rescind those violations, since they really weren't. It was more of the testing method that was not approved. And so the reports include results. They're modified methods. Unfortunately, we couldn't do it in October. We didn't realize this until our December and January, so we got December and January rescinded, but we could not get the October rescinded. So, but now we're on the right track, and so it's kind of the hiccups of a new permit, new items in our permits, figuring those out.
And we have had no exceedances in fecal or Enterococcus?
Not since then, yes. This is a fun one, our ocean outfall inspection. Every year, we are required by our water quality permit to do an inspection twice a year. And so the inspection was performed on July 23rd of 2021. And the outfall was found to be in good condition for its age and should continue to serve the community well into the future. Buoys are placed along to warn boaters not to anchor in that area. They're inspected in the fall and in the spring annually. The contractor will inspect and replace the wear items and labels so they withstand the elements for the next inspection. Sea level rise adaptation. Our new permit issued in 2020 required a sea level rise assessment to be submitted by May of 2022. The city's overall sea level rise assessment plan met this requirement to the state, so we shared that report with the state, and we met that item for our permit. We will need to do further analysis by August 2024 that will focus on protecting our distribution system and our assets close to the waterfronts. And we work with our Sustainability and Resilience Department and helps with this sea level rise adaptation plan.
Just wanted to note we will have an item on this in the springtime. I have Melissa Hetrick, who's leading our sea level rise effort. She has landed a very healthy grant. I want to start with like $2 million grant to help us with this next phase of sea level rise planning. And that will include kind of setting thresholds for or triggers for when actions need to be taken and what, in this case, what infrastructure is vulnerable to that. So planning to come back. She right now is working on hiring a consultant under that effort, and I'll have her come back and talk to the commission some more about this effort.
Lastly, I'd like to touch on our biosolids operations. This is another significant cost center for our treatment process, but one where operations have a little bit more control and room to optimize. As the operators optimize the belt press there, seen in the picture, they try to produce the driest cake as possible, which reduces hauling costs, which has also gone up, obviously, because of gas and everything. We regularly bring our chemical suppliers to work with staff to find the most efficient polymer, and we recently completed a pilot for an enzyme to increase the polymer efficiency. So we are working hand in hand with our vendors and our operators to come up with creative solutions to be more efficient and optimize our dollars. We've been participating in wastewater TAG with IO Utilities. TAG is our technical advisor group. We were introduced to this Novo enzyme Biosec full scale trial. Biosec is an enzyme that changes the surface charge of the solid in the digester sludge to try to improve the dewatering ability. The chart shows our cake dryness our before and during our pilot last year. While we did see some positive results early on, the overall results were inconclusive, and we have not continued to use this chemical. This was a great opportunity for all of us at the plant. As materials and equipment were supplied by the vendor, it made our team really hone in their optimization skills. And we continue to see good performances by our operators just being more engaged and wanting to take on this challenge within the plant. So to us, it was a success story because our operators are more engaged and thinking, how can we be more efficient and effective in the plant? Lastly, I'd like to point out our final destination of our biosolids. All of our biosolids are composted to Class A quality offsite, the majority going to Liberty Farms in Kern County, and the remainder going to Angle and Gray in Santa Maria. And those are all contracts that will have to be, they're revisited all the time. We're always looking for better and more efficient ways to haul our Class A biosolids. Now we'll move on to the collection system.
Yeah, any other questions on treatment?
Oh, thank you. All right. Here's a map of our collection system. I just wanted to refresh everyone. It's 257 miles. 90% of it is gravity system. The majority of it is 6 or 8 inch, and a very old system, about 55-year-old average age. We have the 7 lift stations. That just means you need rehab. You need rehab. That's all. And then 2 miles of force main.
You're already making me feel bad.
Still working. Our P3 objectives for this for our program and the collection system. We really wanted to limit our system overflows to no more than 6. Unfortunately, we had 10 SSOs for fiscal year 22, which we'll go into a little more. We also like to clean 80% of our scheduled pipes prior to their cleaning date. We achieved 60% this year, and both of those were really staffing. And 7 of our spills occurred within the first 2 quarters of the fiscal year. That was a result of being short-staffed significantly. We had 5 vacancies in our collection crew. And then you can see in quarters 3 and 4, we only had 3 spills. And in quarter 4, where we were finally fully staffed, we had no spills. And so between the COVID protocols, which were not revised until February of '22, so if anytime anyone was next to somebody that had COVID, they had then to stay out. So staffing was really, really hard in '22 until in fiscal '22 until the last quarter, when the COVID protocols got revamped and we had more staffing, and you can tell that in the FSOs. However, our wastewater compliance specialist for FOG continues to knock it out of the park. He's really great, goes to 582 sites of inspections. And why is that important? Because it goes into our spills. FOG is, the annual report allows us to really look at our system and what is causing our spills, and we can go back and reevaluate and make it as efficient and effective as possible. This is important. This shows where our 10 spills were. They're all category 3, which means the spills did not reach any waterways. We were able to collect everything within the spill and capture all of the wastewater. We did have one category 1, which means we could not recover 100% of the spill. 27 gallons ended up in the waterway that we could not recover. Then we go, during our investigation, what we do is we look at what caused those spills, because then that educates us on our system. Out of those 10 spills, 90%, 9 of them were roots. The other was a trowel, and someone stuck their trowel, their concrete trowel in the system. That was at the waterfront. They were doing some construction work. And don't do that. No, don't do that. No trowels, no wipes, no diapers. But this really educates us on what's going on in our system.
One of the things, and this continues to be an ongoing dialogue within the wastewater industry, is just what impacts does climate change, and in this case, drought, have, and how much, again, would we have 0 spills if we weren't in a drought? Probably not. But the fact that you have trees, some pretty aggressive, are looking for water because there is none on the surface, they aren't getting their annual rainfall, it does contribute to this. And again, you kind of layer the cake where difficult staffing, but you also have the impacts of climate change, and they show up in all kinds of different ways.
Is that true? That's because it's dry on the surface and so they are digging deeper roots?
They're going for water wherever they can find it, and if they could find it at a higher up in the soil, they'll go for it. But if they can't, they're going out into the street or going into people's laterals, traveling down the lateral to the main. It's a pretty aggressive roots in that case. And
So,
again,
Is there a tree at Cliff Drive that's like the most aggressive tree in the city, since there was 2?
we'll get into that.
Sorry.
No, there actually was. And so when we had the second one, we ended up making a repair. That was our response, and we had to remove a tree that was causing that.
Crazy. Twice in a year.
Yep.
So with respect to the FOG, so it's a great job, 582 inspections. Do we know how many of those are actually part of this program where we collect FOG from them and bring it to the digester?
They all ultimately are since they're in that program, they're already part of.
Okay,
They have to
okay.
have
They
a
are part of
service,
the
because
program.
we're going out to make sure that their trap is being maintained and cleaned out appropriately. So yeah, and we can get into the FOG discussion.
Can I interrupt for a second so we can acknowledge for the minutes that Councilmember Stedden has arrived? Thank you.
So what this does, it helps us with our system maintenance program. So all of these items go into some kind of program for maintenance. They either go into our cleaning program, our acoustic program, our chemical root cleaning program, and our FOG management programs. So, well, the cleaning program. So this kind of tells you, this is a little skewed there on the left. So what we tried to do this year was really our collections operators were getting bogged down with the re-inspections. So everything was getting added to re-inspections over and over again. And so what we decided to do was move a lot of those re-inspections out to 12 months and then put them into either an acoustic or just a visual kind of cleaning. And so we either have a system-wide cleaning, accelerated program, which is we go multiple times a year, which that's not optimal. We do not want to be cleaning our pipes more than once a year. The optimal part is cleaning it one to three years is getting those pipes cleaned. When you start cleaning them multiple times a year, you really start deteriorating those pipes because we are cleaning them at 2,000 PSI to get all of the debris out. And so it ends up causing havoc on our infrastructure. Another item that we use, and why I like to bring this up because it really helps us educate, is our route findings. So if you look at this, there's a lot of light. So that tells us, it can help us with our cleaning programs. If there's a lot of light, we don't really need to clean them over excessively, and they could be moved to the one-year program. However, if there's medium, we may want to just keep an eye on it. It's in that, is this a one-time thing or is this a recurring? If it's heavy, I would like to start moving into getting a CCTV item and looking at why is it heavy? Is it because of roots? Is it because of laterals? Do we need to make a repair? What needs to happen? Debris findings. Debris findings is not only, this is different from roots, so this is also not only roots, but a lot of your wipes. A lot of your other items that is not the organic materials that we find. And so a lot of it, again, same kind of thinking goes with this. So if it's heavy, let's get some eyes on that. If it's light, then let's move that to a one-year cleaning. And if it's medium, let's monitor that and find out why.
So to a little clarification, the findings we have, when we go in and clean a section of sewer main in the downstream manhole, we'll put a screen, a basket to catch what comes out, and we use that to kind of evaluate this light heavy or light medium heavy to kind of, and then we can kind of, the operators are looking to see what it's capturing and kind of noting that, because that all goes into our computer maintenance management system and helps us to kind of set up the next level of cleaning for that. And like Ms. Leslie was saying, whether or not we need to TV it next time actually and see where it's coming from. Some of those laterals or some of those mains that we're finding have been lined. And so if we're finding roots, they're coming in from people's laterals down into our main and causing maintenance issues. So we need to be working with our slip team to notice all of those customers that they need to do something to their laterals.
And here's our fog findings. So this also really helps, and this is really helps us not only with our commercial, which generally tend to be in compliance, and we have all those fog inspections, but what we're seeing a little bit more and more is our micro kitchens. And so a lot of people like to cook or have big barbecues, and so micro kitchens. And this is something that we try to keep an eye out. And it also helps us to educate the residents or anyone that's causing these fog findings.
I do want to say Ms. Flessy tried to intervene in that micro kitchen conversation when that was coming along to have some type of additional requirements related to their lateral and sewer discharges, and unfortunately that was considered too big of a restriction, and they really wanted to move forward with these really without any delay. So now we're kind of having to, how do we come back around, and how do we keep track of these properties that are obviously discharging more than just residential waste?
Other findings is that everything else that does not follow into the roots or the debris. So
Would this be the trowel?
this would be a trowel. This would be where the concrete trowel is, any vermin or what have you. Anything else we find in there. So this all goes into our cleaning program. Really what we want to do is move to more of a geographical basin kind of approach with our cleaning program. It helps with the efficiency and effectiveness of our cleaning program, and we're able to really move to cleaning all of our pipes within 1 year. And so if you remember, we had 257 miles of pipes, and each year we're gaining just a little bit more and more of those pipes that we are trying to accomplish. And so with that, what we do is we take a look back and what is the future of our collection system. Obviously, staff development and training, we have a bunch of new staff, so we have to get them trained on cleaning and our trucks and our software and our new equipment. We have a new CCTV equipment. We have a new CCTV, no longer a van, it's a little truck. It's fantastic, and we're getting that all geared up and outfitted with our software, and we'll be having that on the road quite a bit. And we'll get a lot of our staff trained on our PACP, which is our pipeline assessment program. So that's how they rate the pipelines when we put the camera into the pipe. What I would like to do, those findings that we did before and how Mr. Hagmark explained, they're very objective of what our operators are seeing. And so it's really not concrete evidence. And so what I would like to do is to develop our CCTV program. I'd like to get eyes on our entire program. Right now, we only have eyes on 50% of our collection system. So I would like to move in a direction where we go and we CCTV our entire collection system within 5 years. So we break it into 5 different basins, and each year we tackle one of those basins. However, to get that, I am moving with a 3-year program to get all of the collection system CCTV'd. We just completed our large diameter, and large diameter, what we defined it as 12-inch and over. So we just completed that this past month, and we're hoping to go out in January for our small diameter, so everything under 12-inch, which is the majority of our collection system. With that, they will also inspect our manholes. And what we're hoping to get from there, get more efficient with our cleaning and stop cleaning pipes that don't really need to get clean. Really develop our CIP program, because all of that data will go into what we need as far as our repairs and rehabilitations. And then also that will help with our SLIP program as well. So the eyes is really the educated portion of our collection system. Also, as part of our collection system is we have a wastewater storybook that we're hoping to put on our website with it, hopefully by the end of this year. So I just wanted to give you a preview of it, of what it looks like. And so it's easily to scroll down. We'll have our little videos on there. It's easy to scroll down and really educate the homeowners and everyone of what our collection system is, and our CCTV program, and kind of our SLIP. So it really just is there to inform provide more information for everybody, all in one area. So we are still working on this, so it's in draft form, but I just kind of wanted to give you a little highlight and a preview, especially when it comes to our slip. Everyone is wondering, when are you going to be CCTVing? Am I going to be getting that letter at that time? And so we'll have that on there. Our capital improvement program we'll have on there, kind of showing where we are, well, that's not up, but showing where we are looking to rehab and repair a lot of our, for each fiscal year for 5 years, and just our operations and maintenance. And so our chemical routes up there, what we are planning to do in the next year. Just trying to be more transparent and give more information as to what it is, who we are and what we do. And so, all right, we're wrapping up here. How do I get? Oops. There we go. Home stretch. So, our capital improvement projects. Our current capital improvement projects, we're a little slow with staffing availability. Our engineering team was down 30%, so that really impacted our current capital improvement projects. However, we were still able to do some projects. Our annual rehab project, which is what is represented, that got off to a little late start, but it's going right now and should be concluded at the end of this year. As mentioned before, our digester cleaning, we are one digester down. We're going to be doing the second digester in this winter. Our recycled water pump rehabilitation, that one is ongoing. That one is on hold because we are waiting for pumps. This is part of the construction delay that we are experiencing over and over in all of our projects. And our chlorine contact chamber rehabilitation, that's in design and hoping to go out to bid in this fiscal year. For our upcoming CIP, we'll have our ongoing annual rehabilitation repair projects for our sewer. We also have our I&I update. We deployed 43 smart covers within our system to monitor. We just need it to rain. And so we're hoping that it'll rain this winter, and so we can actually get some good data into our system and see how, this is also data, how our repairs are doing. Are we accomplishing that inflow and infiltration? Are we targeting the right spots? As far as treatment, Braemar Lift Station rehabilitation project, that is looking to go out to bid next month. So I do have to say, however, we are going to go out to bid and we're going to award bid and everything. We probably won't be starting construction for another year. And that's because the motors for the pumps are 12 to 18 months lead time. So we will be coming to you guys. You guys will be awarding a bid and be like, what happened to this project? And so we're seeing that quite a bit on everything. Again, also the electrical project, we're planning on going out to bid in the spring of 23 and awarding, but those also have long lead times and probably won't actually be starting the digging in the ground for a year after that has been bid. But we're hoping to take advantage of that time and do the chlorine contact chamber in between that year and try to nestle that one in so it can get in and out of the way. That doesn't have any lead time items. That's just getting that one out to bid in time for and getting that contractor in and out of there. Now with the electrical, we'll have obviously we'll be able to increase our flare capacity, which will increase the fog capacity, which we can reevaluate those when that comes up. All right, any questions?
So we didn't get to talk too much about fog in the sense that, and I think it is in your Water Resources Manager's report, but we do have the ability to take significantly more fog We really, Marburg has not been utilizing all the capacity that we have. And that is something that we need to explore next time that contract comes up, because I think we're taking everything they have at this point. They haven't said anything otherwise. So I think if we really want to maximize gas production and keep fog local, we probably need to entertain multiple haulers in that.
I'd like to kind of clarify that. So Marburg is not providing the maximum amount of fog that's allowable to them in their contract. So I am very hesitant to allow another vendor in, because if they come in with their maximum amount and then the other vendor comes in their maximum amount, then I might be over. So I have to play the role of, they are going to come in with their maximum amount. They just haven't been. Not sure why, but sometimes they do, a lot of times that they don't. And so we're only producing the amount that is provided to us, and we are really restricted by the contractual obligations.
Have you had the conversations as to what's going on?
With Marburg, why they're not, no.
Yeah. I'm just curious whether they're some type of seasonal or a pandemic. I just don't know. I'd be curious to at least ask the question.
We definitely can. Their renewal was just up. We can definitely reach out and ask if they're planning to, or maybe we just ask them if we see a change in a trend, and like, can we reduce it and bring somebody else in?
Yeah, that's the question.
Yeah. I think the question of having two would allow, one could figure out a way in the contract so that you wouldn't have,
You would hit the max.
hit the max. I mean,
Yeah.
I think that part could easily be done. I'm sure that could be worked out. So I think the question is just, would it really benefit to have more players? And I think it would, so.
Thank you, Vice Chair Cooney. So I have a couple questions. One, with the findings maps, if you overlay them with each other, are there hotspot areas of, having all the issues in one place?
So we generally do that in our findings in our cleaning committee. So that's what we do, look at and see if there is something that encompasses all, and then we send the CCTV camera in there to find out what is going on.
Okay. I figured you're on top of that. I was just curious if any stood out as areas of interest, but that you don't need to answer.
Not really. We kind of address it when we find it.
Okay. Thank you. And then for the fog question, we are in negotiation with Marburg right now for the 10-year contract for the hauling. And the Sustainability Committee just heard on Monday how those negotiations are going and some things we might be asking for. So if your input on that, this is the time.
Yeah, I know how complicated, or at least I envision how complicated those hauling contracts are. I don't know if we want to entertain another variable on this one, but this is something I hope would be in the future put out to, I don't know if it's bid per se, but some type of option where we open the door for more. Certainly if Marburg only has so much material, we want to make sure we maximize our ability to take fog. So I don't know, you all may have a better sense of that. I don't know if this is a great time to bring that up, but that's certainly a big part of their operation. I imagine their revenue, just looking at how much they pay us and how much we know they take in from their customers, it seems like a potentially significant revenue source for them.
It may be a good time to just internally have the conversation with Aurelia Parento and those who are negotiating with that contract to see if this is a good time, because it just strikes me that it may be. It may not be, but since it's happening now, and then it's really with sustainability in mind and what more we can do in that arena at this time with this particular hauler. So just a note. And then only since you mentioned the 30% staff that we don't have, and, you know, water, wastewater, critical infrastructure questions, and this is a question maybe for the committee. At what point does this committee make recommendations about pay increases, or what it is we need to do for retention, or these types of questions and recommendations, because this is critical. And we mention it a little sprinkled in here and there, but I don't know that there's a full realization of, I mean, this is basic infrastructure, water and wastewater, and I'll just leave that as an open-ended question.
Councilmember Sneddon, I really appreciate your support on this, and I think I think folks have heard the council on this loud and clear, and we just finished doing a rate study just for engineering, and it's coming back recommending like 19% increases for some of our positions. That is headed to council next week. So hopefully that gets approved. I think that will finally make us competitive in that area and start to fill some of those vacancies. Yeah.
Was there any more comments or questions from the, please?
No, thank you, but to that, if the commission wanted to make recommendations along those lines to council, it's not agendized exactly here, but I would encourage you to do so.
No, I had the question relative to retention, because that's always the issue, and today, in all these industries, retention is a big deal, so the issue's really big. I don't know that we're into the compensation issue, whether Water Commission is weighed in or actually have the appropriate role at the council role, I think, in our responsibilities.
You know, I harken back to our conversation in August. That was very,
Right.
We had some good players here at the meeting listening to the commission's discussion, and Councilmember said, and it got some action. So I'm hopeful that it goes well at council next week. That'll correct quite a few. That also addressed some of the wastewater operator positions that were also kind of lingering, and then some raises there as well. So I'm optimistic. At least we'll not be paying in the bottom of the market. So I think that's going to be one step closer. You know, we still have the challenges of getting people to be able to move here or commute here. So, but I think we're going to be a little more competitive in the market.
So the council is done with their questions and comments. Do we have any public comment?
Not at this time, no.
Okay, in that case, I think we'll be moving on to administrative item 6C, updates to the city's landscape design and standards.
Vice Chair and Commissioners, this is a item that just came up. We're being responsive to what's going on at the state level here, and I want to introduce Jasmine Shower, who is going to be walking us through this presentation. Thanks.
Good morning, Commissioners and Councilmember. Good morning, Commissioners and Councilmember Sneddon. My name is Jasmine Showers, and I'm a Water Resources Specialist. And I've been the primary staff member reviewing landscape design plans for the last 4 years. And I'm here to talk to you today about our proposed updates to the city's landscape design standards. So I'll start the presentation today with the background of the city's landscape design standards, and then the purpose of updating them, the update process that we took, and then a summary of the updates, and then hopefully there'll be some time for questions and feedback. The city has a long history of promoting water conservation through landscape design standards, or LDS. These have been in place since 1989, and then they were last updated in 2008. And we want to continue to prioritize water-efficient landscapes while also allowing for creative and attractive designs. And the city's LDS are very cost-effective and save water, which I'll go into in the next slide. As part of the 2020 Water Conservation Strategic Plan, our consultants, Medaus Water Management conducted an economic survey of 21 selected water conservation measures. And they used their least cost planning decision support system, or DSS model for short, to conduct this analysis. And the graph on the right shows the results of this. And I won't go through every single measure that was modeled, but for example, water checkups, mulch program, rainwater catchment system rebate, school education, and irrigation evals. And the measures on the top are the most cost effective, and then the measures on the bottom are the least cost effective. I'll just zoom in on the results. The model found that water conserving landscapes and irrigation codes are the most cost effective, and they cost $161 per acre foot of water saved. Oh, sorry, to go back. I think it's important to note too that the landscape design standards have a very long-term savings because they ensure that as soon as the landscape is put in, it's irrigated efficiently for the lifetime of the system. And we've approved about, since 2016, we've approved about 461 projects representing about 85 irrigated acres. In the meantime, California passed a statewide model water efficient landscape ordinance in 2010, and we call this MWELO for short, and this was revised in 2015. The state allows permitting agencies to continue to use their own water efficient landscape ordinance if it is at least as strict as MWELO. So the city's LDS has been approved for continued use by the state because it is stricter in two ways: project applicability thresholds and low water using plant requirements. However, it's been 14 years since the last update. We need an update to include irrigation technology advances and MWELO specifics. To craft the updates, staff used MWELO text as the guide and brought in language directly from MWELO. Revisions were completed in August 2022 and then made public. And we posted this on the city website and then distributed it to email lists in the design community. And we also held virtual office hours on October 6th to gather feedback. The first update that we wanted to start with was to increase clarity by removing duplicate language in the municipal code. Right now, the LDS exists in the same language in two parts of the Muni Code, Title 14 and Title 22. So we propose removing the LDS language in its chapter under Title 22, and then amending the LDS language under Title 14. We also want to include limited exemptions, and this is to reduce staff time for some projects that kept coming in, and such as ecological restoration projects and non-for-profit edible gardens. We also added an option to reach plant compliance using the city's water efficient landscape worksheet, which is a calculator. And this is a calculator adapted directly from MWELO, but we have stricter parameters in there to meet our City of Santa Barbara plant requirements. And this really simplifies the process for applicants because many applicants are already doing this. They're used to the MWELO calculator, and I see this a lot when I'm reviewing plans. We added irrigation requirements, again, per MWELO. For example, Wi-Fi enabled irrigation controllers with internal rain sensors are allowed. Manual shutoff valves are now required for all projects. And larger projects, which we're defining as greater than 5,000 square feet, now need flow sensors and master shutoff valves. A city final inspection is still required before a certificate of occupancy. And then projects, again, over 5,000 square feet will also need a third-party certified irrigation audit. And that concludes the presentation, and hopefully we have some time for feedback and questions. Thank you.
Thank you. It's good to hear we're updating these. And I'm really
Yeah.
interested in the edible gardens, and I'm not sure I understood, so an exemption means it's easier to make an edible garden, or could you elaborate? Yeah.
Yes, yeah, thank you, Councilmember Sneddon. Yes, we often see that right now residential projects are required to have 80% low water using plants. So they have to put in, if they want edible garden, that has to be one part of their 20%. So we're just making it clear that we support, sustainable edible gardens, and they don't have to include it in their calculations.
Thank you. And that's if you're getting a permit?
Correct,
Okay.
yeah. So if they include it on their design plan, right now, the way that the LDS is written, I would have to get approval to include that, or they couldn't have as many citrus trees as they wanted, or things like that.
So then the update, that portion is exempt from the rest of the
Correct,
calculation?
yeah, so
Okay.
it would just be on the calculator, they usually just blank it out. They include it and have the square feet, but then it's just not in
Got
the
it.
totals.
And then at what point, if someone keeps planting things in their yard that are edible or, making changes, at what point does that become a project that needs to be looked at?
Well, the way we have proposed is that if it's not for profit, there really isn't a limit, just since it's edible. But also if they didn't need to pull a permit, we wouldn't really have control over that.
Thank you so much. So if I just keep planting things in my yard that I can eat, I'm okay?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks for this presentation. I had a couple questions. One, I was just curious about that cost effectiveness study from Modaus. I was wondering if that's shareable.
Yes, yeah.
Love to see that.
Yeah, it's in the appendix of the 2022 Water Conservation Strategic Plan.
Okay.
Yeah.
No.
Yes,
I
it's
remember
a
that.
supporting document for the Enhanced Urban Water Management Plan.
It's an appendix of an appendix.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
Great.
can't believe you just missed that one.
Crazy. And then, so just to clarify, so this is for new developments or developments that require some sort of city permitting, right? This is not for all existing landscapes?
Yes, yeah, it's if it's new landscape or revised landscape, and also part of a permit for design review or a building permit.
Got it. And then I was also just curious, so I think this week or last week, the Metropolitan Water District their board came out with a statement, recommending banning irrigation of non-functional turf more permanently, and I was just curious if the city has thoughts on that or stances on that. I know that we're not in Met service area, but just curious to get thoughts on that.
Set me up. We've done it before, and I think if the conditions call for it, I think we are prepared. It's in our plan to do it again. I think the better way has been this effort here to kind of, as people come in and upgrade, to kind of steer them away from grass to other things has been more successful and keeps people who are in love with their grass right now from it becoming, it's incredible how emotional grass can be for some. So that's been the current plan. And I think with each drought, more grass goes away. And when I get into my manager's report, I'll talk a little about how that has impacted us. But I think, that's been our strategy now. And I think if we go to go to a turf ban again, I think we'll lose more grass out there, and it will be replaced hopefully with something that we've had a chance to kind of help them design. So that's been the strategy, just given how controversial the idea of grass has been.
Non-functional grass, I'm not talking.
I know, tell me about it, even the non-functional,
Okay, thank you.
Yes.
And then another question, kind of building on the conversation that we started to have in August around rainwater capture as part of these landscape designs, and I was just wondering if you could speak to that.
Yeah, so the rainwater capture, I'm not sure if you saw that part of this. It was actually one of the least cost-effective conservation measures there. It's the last one. But that's actually a barrel that you would
Yeah.
imagine. So when landscapes are designed to actually just capture water and keep it on site instead of going into the storm drain, we definitely encourage that.
And I guess this is looking at cost effectiveness only from a water conservation perspective and not
Yeah.
for flood control or pollution control.
Yeah.
I was surprised to see general public education. So I guess that's another one that's like the benefits of that exceed just conservation and probably,
Yeah,
it's a harder
yeah,
thing to
this
compare.
model is looking at each measure as if it was only independent, when really education affects every measure.
Yeah.
So it's definitely a limitation of this model to keep in mind.
And so are there, in terms of, so not necessarily thinking about rain barrels, but thinking about more like nature-based, rainwater gardens and catchments, is that something that's in MWELO or in the landscape design standards currently?
There is a section on grading, and there's a sentence that says that, landscapes should be designed to capture water and keep it on site. And we have that in our standards as well.
Thank you.
I should say it also gets picked up by our creeks,
Yes.
which does require that stormwater be kept at least an inch, the first inch kept on site. So we're having these two things merged together. We are going to have a presentation on that. That's going to be an item that we're going to bring back. I think we've slated it for January, sometime in January, to kind of bring back that kind of collaborative discussion with sustainability, creeks, and our water resources staff. So we will continue that. Found it interesting when I was just looking at this. I'm like, school education is a good, cost-effective, but general education of adults is not. not.
It's kind of funky.
Catch them young. It's cheaper. Okay.
I mean, that tracks.
It's,
They really get it.
yeah, and it's amortized for a long time.
Okay, any other comments or questions from the committee? Is there any public comment at this time?
No, there is not.
Okay,
I move staff recommendations.
second.
Commissioner Davis,
Yes.
Commissioner Keller, Commissioner Kammeyer,
Yes.
and Vice Chair Cooney.
Yes. Okay, and now we will move on to the Water Resources Manager's Report.
I have to admit, this is my favorite month. Because you actually get a full water year. We did celebrate Happy Water Year to everybody. And let's see, where are my notes on this? Lots, I don't know if you got a chance to dig in, but I will hit some of the highlights. You'll notice we use substantially less water from Kachuma this year. And it's kind of a combination of a few things. A, our community used about 1,000 acre feet less than we had expected. We were able to get about 1,600 acre feet out of Gibraltar that we weren't planning on. And we had planned for some maintenance activities to happen at DSAL, so we had reduced what we thought was going to be, and we got another 1,000 feet out of DSAL that we weren't planning on. So it kind of gives you a sense of where it all came out, but it really is a great story this year. I think I really couldn't be happier with where our community is right now. They're at about 25% conservation. We're going to give you all the details next month. Ms. Corey is crunching the numbers, and she'll be back with kind of a picture of where we are and where we're headed with that. But overall, really pleased with that. This graphic does pick up our sale of water to Montecito, which started in January, so not a full water year, and it also picks up, you'll notice recycled water is elevated here. That picks up our agreement with La Cumbra, so that's why it's different than I think what we had proposed, which was prior to La Cumbra coming on board.
You know, Joshua, where's it pick up Montecito?
What's that?
Where does it pick up Montecito?
We are delivering them 1,400, so it really picks it up in that last number.
Okay.
Which is the projected 12.5,
Okay.
which you may recall we were around 11, and that's why that looks elevated. So it's kind of included.
I know, it's hard to.
You're supposed to do the.
Yeah. Yeah.
We'll send you a digital copy. That's good. So here's kind of just a snapshot of what that production versus actual and how that kind of shook out, more or less what I was kind of going over. This, we have here just kind of mapping what our urban water management plan had in it versus where we are right now. We're right along that axis. It'll be interesting if we continue to follow it or if the current conservation efforts continue to take us in a different direction.
I had a question on this. When will we be at a point where we can put the new urban conservation targets on this? Because we have the GPC target, the 2020 from the 7x7, but I'll be curious to see the new ones on here.
Are they finalized? I
I
wasn't.
don't, that's why I'm asking.
Yeah, I don't, she just left. I don't think they're been finalized yet, because that they, once they will, we'll put them on
At
here
least
for
the
sure.
I thought the residential targets got finalized.
I think there's something out there. There's certainly a number out there. I don't know if it's been finally blessed, but we'll get it on here, because it, yeah. I don't recall what that ended up being, but we will get that on here. Because we have been doing, as you may recall, we've been, I forget how many customers we have, 1,000 or so customers that have a flume. And we have, as part of the city's participation in that, because you can get a flume for $75 instead of $200, is we get kind of access to that back-end data, and we can kind of see indoor versus outdoor usage in that. And we've been using that to kind of see roughly where our community is. Likely most of the flume people are already kind of water conscious people, but yesterday was wet. Seasonal precipitation. Ironically, we land like right on this line of equal chances and below. So I don't know, there's something magical about that. But I was looking at this. I think we've talked a little bit about this before. But you see, we're at that, as in the graph here, we're at this green point. Where's the cursor? I can't even see the graph. Okay, we're here. During the last drought, we kind of replicated this. We were here. The difference, and again, say we were here, the Kachuma was here. The difference between this point and this point is about 20,000 acre feet, which happens to be what the city has in storage. So just to give it, it's you know, that I think no one else has moved the needle much except the city in diversifying its supply mix, and it's had a big impact on that reservoir.
That's very interesting. Thanks for that point.
Yeah. Nothing. Let's see if I had anything significant to point out on recycle water. That it reflects
Sorry, I
Lacumba.
had a question on the Kachuma storage
Mhm.
graph with these. So there's these different stage 1, stage 2, stage 3 declared at different times. So those are drought conditions, or can you clarify just what those?
Yeah, those were the council declared stages. In fact, we don't have our stage 2 on here, so we got to get that added. And we'll be talking about that more next month.
Okay, and so those are based not only on Kachuma levels, but on overall drought conditions, or?
It's really kind of this is kind of an interesting matchation of a graph. This is the storage in Kachuma, but what we laid over it is when the city had taken actions as it relates to the lake. We kind of felt like it was a helpful guide as we seems to be in this cycle here of when are we making decisions as it relates to the lake. So yeah, we got to get that stage 2, which we're in right now, on there. And that was as of, what we do that, June we did that.
Got it. Okay, thank you.
Recycled water, we're getting good production out of our recycled water plant. I wanted to point out here, this is interesting, and maybe I've talked about this before. So 2012, I went back and looked. Average flows into El Estero was 8 MGD. Average. I mean, we haven't hit 6 this year. Really remarkable, you know, and it really speaks to that indoor efficiencies. It's replacing those dishwashers, replacing the toilets, and it's having a significant impact. I'm not sure where and how far this keeps going, but it's really interesting, and it's certainly making. We didn't really kind of get into this, but collection system maintenance, you know, so you just less water, you start leaving solids behind it. It starts getting it starts getting a little more challenging in the future. How do we go about keeping our collection system healthy and operating so things don't become a problem or an odor issue or a backup? And then if you're looking at this as a future water supply, well, it's dwindling. And I think I just wanted to point out here, for this, and this is, I think it's calendar year. I can't remember on this one. It's we're at 6 spills. Yeah, it's calendar year. We're at 6 spills for this year. And then we've got lots of stuff going on in SLIP. And with that, just wondering if there's any other questions or general questions. Yes.
Just
Councilmember
comments, and maybe, I don't know if this is an update or not, but just from the COMB, we had an operations meeting yesterday, and there were, I don't know which day, but last week, there were a lot of comments about the water year modeling and using conservative models and it being right on track, and a lot of commendation for the city for the water conservation and that added storage that was noted in there too, was from the city making really big changes. But just Kachuma is right now at 60%, and I do think it might be helpful on this chart, the Kachuma storage, to add a percentage line in there so that it translates. Might be helpful, because one of these low points is like almost 0%, and it might be helpful to see that. But that chart's really helpful. I like that you added the city stage droughts on there. And then just for a COMB update, the secured pipeline is being built and is underway, and it's really exciting and really modern engineering happening there, and really proud of that and the work with the city too.
Thank you. Yes, that is fantastic news. We did, the last time we did meet in September, despite our best efforts in modeling, which has been very accurate, the Bureau did not go along with our request for an allocation and basically made it 0. So they're taking a very, very conservative stand. I did want to note, and I'm happy to send it to you as well, there's a great article, podcast on NPR about the current drought situation. And it's always interesting when they interview different people, and this particular investigative reporter was really knowledgeable. And one of the things that I think we have some synergy with is he was talking about the Bureau, going back to the Bureau again, about their failed and outdated policies for farmers, in which if they don't use it, they lose it, and how it's driving a lot of these farmers to do things to continue to exercise their water rights. And to me, there seem to be a lot of parallels between that and their, if you don't use your carryover water, we're going to take it away mentality they've had here. So, not sure exactly. I wanted to reach out to Councilmember Stead and talk a little bit more about how we continue, because that seems like they're hearing this from all of the users, that you need to stop this outdated policy of punishing people who are conserving their water. So anyway, we'll see if we can get some momentum someday when they open up the Kachuma contract negotiations, which we keep waiting for and waiting for and waiting for. But
Yeah, please do share that.
Yeah.
With the group,
Okay.
podcast.
Yeah, I'd be happy to do that. Any other questions, comments?
Is there any public comment?
No, there's not.
Okay, I think at that point we can close the meeting for today, and we'll meet again Thursday, November 17th at 9 a.m.
Thank you. Great job.